And some of the things mentioned in the report, as you said, are very horrific. Some of the examples include a 16-year-old inmate being stomped and punched and kicked in the face by a CO, and another man bleeding from the face while handcuffed. Do you really find it hard to believe that things like this are going on in the correctional facilities right here in St. Louis?
No, I don't find it hard to believe at all. I'm sure that those kinds of things are going on, and we've seen so many complaints about these kinds of abuses over the years. One of the things that took place and helped to prompt this investigation was a complaint by a young man. I don't know if I need to put his name out there right now because I think he's still in the system. He had complained that he had been assaulted at the Justice Center so brutally that he couldn't leave the center under his own power. Even upon his release, he instead refused release and asked for medical attention. They finally pretty much forced him to go out of the facility physically, and he had to crawl out. He couldn't walk out under his own power. He had to crawl out on all fours, out onto the street, and he crawled to police headquarters. Now, I don't know how many inmates upon their release crawl to police headquarters when they're released, but he went there seeking help. He thought that they could get him an ambulance, which they did. He was taken to St. Louis Barnes Jewish Hospital, where physicians looked at him and decided that he required emergency surgery immediately. His internal injuries were so extensive that they had to operate right away. Those kinds of incidents, incidents involving assaults ordered by corrections officers because an inmate repeated a question. In the report there's a description of a brutal assault on several inmates where they were assaulted with billy clubs, viciously beaten about the body and the head because an inmate asked a question and a corrections officer didn't want to answer the question, and the inmate asked him the question again. Well, now it was time to brutally assault these guys. The juvenile that you described, who was also viciously assaulted, he made a joke. He made a joke about a corrections officer or to a corrections officer, and it resulted in him being beaten like that. These are not only violations of policy, but in the aggregate, collectively, as you read through the kinds of things that are described in here, they're human rights violations. They are operating in violation of the International Declaration of Human Rights, to which the United States is a signatory. We have an inmate in this report, a gentleman who describes witnessing an assault on an inmate by another corrections officer that was so sadistic that the inmate urinated blood as a result of the assault. Those are the kinds of things that really demand that a sane and just society take some action. And I know, there'll be many people who see this tape, this interview, or who read the report and say, but wait a minute, aren't these bad people? Haven't we categorized them as criminals? It's very important to this report and to anyone wanting to fully understand the implications of it to know that many of the people in these institutions as we speak have been convicted of nothing, They are in there, they've been held for months, some of them for years, without due process. They haven't had access to the inside of any courtroom for an evidentiary hearing and any number of things, and that is in and of itself a major problem that this St. Louis community is going to ultimately, I think, be made to do something about. The fact that the public defender's office goes over here, and because these people are under such duress, offers them pleas and everything else, and many of them after so long become desperate to get out of this hell, and they take it to get back to families, to get back to jobs, to get back to whatever it is they need to return to, or at least get out of these conditions in which they can be abused without consequence and their rights have been effectively suspended. I think it's important for people to know. A lot of these people have been convicted of nothing. And even the ones who have been charged, we have the rule of law here. We have constitutional protections here which were put in place at the founding of the nation by people who most people in positions of power and authority respect and revere and describe as having been good sound thinkers, and they put these protections in place for people. It is not our role then to seek retribution for alleged crimes prior to somebody having had their day in court, which really further exacerbates the problem. I think that makes it even more damaging to our society and to the fabric of our society when we allow for this and try to justify it because we've attached certain labels to certain groups of people.
Mm-hmm. And were there any reports of inmates who have died while at the facility?
There were.
That you heard? There
were. There is an account that was widely covered here in St. Louis of an inmate, LaVonda Kimball. And when I say inmate, let me clarify, because she was only in the Justice Center, the City Justice Center, because of a warrant for a traffic violation or something like that. She was a single mom, had a 12-year-old son. I don't think she had a real criminal history. She was picked up because there was a warrant out. She had failed to appear on a traffic warrant. She had an asthma attack down there at the Justice Center, and the EMTs were called and they responded, and as you'll find in the report, the EMTs, these are St. Louis emergency medical technicians, report that they were hindered. They were kept from gaining entry to the building for a period of time that was significant when you're trying to get to somebody that's having an acute asthma attack. They further report that that's common. That's the norm. Whenever they respond, whenever they are summoned to the Justice Center to treat medically inmates for whom the city is responsible, it's a chore just to get entry. There's no sense of urgency. Once they did gain entry, some firefighters who had already made the scene before they got there told them that the staff at the Justice Center had been trying to perform CPR on LaVonda Kimball by compressing her stomach, which is medically incompetent, if you understand anything about CPR. They then attempt to treat the patient, LaVonda Kimball, and they describe in the report that they provided that the staff, the COs there, seemed to be very agitated by the fact that they had protested how long it took them to get in the building, the fact that they were, really trying to work on this patient, and they kept asking them questions and really badgering them to the point where the EMTs had to ask them to back off twice because we're trying to save this woman's life. At some point, they even had to inform the staff at the CJC, the City Justice Center, that this woman is in cardiac arrest and we'll talk to you after we treat her. And they said that the staff seemed to be surprised by that. They didn't know the woman was in cardiac arrest. Ultimately, she died. She died at the hospital after being taken there. I think it was St. Louis University Hospital. But clearly, they were concerned that that whole process may have made a difference in the life and death of LaVonda Kimball.